darlings! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Hahn, and it is time to play the Q&A sensation that's sweeping the nation, Ask an Opera Singer! So I am a disabled opera singer, and last week I sent out a little short asking for your questions on opera, disability, and, whatever else you might want to know. And here are my answers. Let's get cozy and do this thing. Before we start, if you were looking for a joyful little corner of the internet where we could learn about opera, disability, queerness, cats, and tea, you have found it. And if you weren't looking for it, you found it anyway. So go hit that subscribe button and ring the little bell so you never miss a video. Amy Quill asks, if you could sing any role ever, even if it's not soprano, what role would you love to sing? And have you performed that role already? I think there are lots of categories for what roles I'd like to sing under which circumstances. Like, roles that fit my voice? Certainly. I would love to sing Violetta in Traviata. I think she's one of the coolest, most interesting people sopranos ever get to be. I've sung a scene from it as part of a sort of concert thing. I did the Gemma scene, which was awesome. I got to collapse onto the floor dramatically 3 times in 20 minutes. It was amazing. I would love to do more of that. I would love to sing the whole role. I think it could be a really good role for me, I think. As for roles that aren't my voice type, I think every human who interacts with opera at all wants to sing the Queen of the Night, no matter their voice type. We all just kind of want to be a queen. I had learned it for a bit back when I was sort of doing more of the high coloratura repertoire, but it never quite fit me.
It was a living hell!
So I'll leave it to the queen specialists. I also do sing musical theater repertoire, so I have a different list for musical theater repertoire as well. Dream role that isn't my voice type is definitely Bobby from Company. We all want to be Rala Sparza, taking the one dramatic step and then the other dramatic step into the spotlight and then screaming that last chorus. As for roles that I think I could do in musical theater, Glinda in Wicked is definitely one. She is everything I want in a role. She's funny, she's emotional, and I love all of that. You get to do all of that in one night. Like, what's not to love? But yeah, it depends on what category of role we're talking about. Amy also asks if there are any bizarre tips I have heard of or used to keep my instrument in top shape, such as no dairy or barely speaking on performance days, etc. I've heard of those, and I do avoid dairy on performance days, but it's not like, get it away from me. I just sort of generally avoid it. I do think everybody has their own types of rituals, and I do kind of have mine. I think they're designed to make you feel better and feel more in the zone, I guess, as you prepare for your show. Naomi and Corvin ask, what kind of accommodations have you been able to procure for your particular disabilities? I'm lucky. Most of my accommodations that I need are things that I can do myself. So most of my accommodations revolve around scheduling, like where other artists could schedule things back to back to back, or jumping on a plane, going from one rehearsal to another, 10-hour days, 3 rehearsals and 4 shows, bang, 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 get on a plane, go around the world and do that again. I couldn't do that. So I have to take the time to schedule downtime between shows, and I supplement my income with teaching, like a lot of opera singers do, so I can take fewer contracts and space them out like that. I've also been able in the past to ask, hey, I have a heart condition, which means I don't pump my blood around my body very well, and it's much harder for me to be here in the morning than in the afternoon with this heart condition. If the option is available, call me in the afternoon instead of the morning. And usually that's okay. Most opera rehearsals don't start until at the earliest late morning, and I can handle that. And also, if I have warning, I can usually budget recovery time from morning commitments. The other one, of course, are these babies. Some productions, these fit, and some they don't. Just before the global pandemic, I had just been cast as Thibaut in Verdi's Don Carlo in a production that was sort of post-apocalyptic, and I had been prepared to talk to the costume designers and be like, hey, would these work? Because I would love to be able to use my aids on stage. Some they don't, and that's fine, but I'm always allowed to wear these in rehearsal, which just, prevents pain, early onset of pain. The other number one thing is sitting down. Now, I walk much better than I stand, but a lot of staging rehearsals where you're just spacing large ensembles involve a lot of standing in place. And if I'm able, I will have talked to the directors or whatnot long beforehand and said, hey, standing is really difficult for me. If we're doing rehearsals like that, where you're spacing people, can I sit down on the spot a little bit if you're moving me around? I'm happy to stand right back up. If I see you're looking back at me and trying to figure out the image in your head or whatever. Those are usually the accommodations that I ask for in a show. But because it's mostly a scheduling thing, a lot of the accommodations that I need are dealt with before I even walk into the audition room. If the schedule is too intense, I don't audition. If the schedule is something that I can work with, then I show up. Do you ever get tired of the cycle running on adrenaline and being exhausted at home? Honestly, yes and no. Being exhausted and feeling really ill is boring. It's not this delightful, holiday time that people often think it is. They think we're, at home playing games on our phones and watching TV. And yes, we are, but that's because that's all we can do. And it's boring. It's boring to feel like you've been hit by a truck. It's boring to feel gross. It's boring to not be able to sit up, boring to only be able to play on your phone. So that's not my favorite. But at the same time, I choose to spend my spoons in this way. I love spending my spoons in this way. I love my job, and this is the body I have, so it's the body I will do it in. Therefore, given my reality, I wouldn't have it any other way, because my real life options are not to wave a magic wand and be not chronically ill anymore. My real life options are to have the cycle or to not do the thing I love, and I choose the cycle. Also, shout out to their friend Chess, who works on the Seattle Opera Young Artists Composition Program. Hi, Chess! Charlotte B asks, what kind of practice exercises do you use for breathing, etc.? I had planned to demonstrate all this, but it just takes so much time. I work on engaging all of my muscles while I do breathing exercises. So I have this sort of butterfly thing. I'll sit on the edge of a chair and put the butterfly thing between my knees and squeeze. So I'm engaging my glutes and then a little bit up in my torso. And then I'll take an exercise band and tie that around my ribs, just where a bra elastic might go. And then inflate my ribs to hold it up. So I'm muscularly engaged while I do a breath exercise. And then I inhale like I'm sucking in a really sort of tough bit of spaghetti for about 15 seconds. I hold that for about 15 seconds and then I exhale on a for about 15 seconds, and I do that over and over again. Firefly24601 asks, I imagine that a performance can be physically draining. What do you do to recover, both mentally and physically? Great question. I stay in bed, to be honest with you. I've learned to enjoy the life that I can lead when I spend chunks of it in bed or on the couch. It's one of the reasons I create videos, right? Because it's a thing that I can make when I have the spoons to use my brain, but not my body. I drink a lot of tea and I'm very careful with what I eat when I recover because that can make things worse. And I sort of monitor my energy levels, right? I'll sometimes get to a point as I recover from a show where I might be physically able to do X or Y thing, but I know I would continue to pay for it later. And I therefore have to be sort of conservative in the plans that I make while I recover. I mean, shout out to all my friends who still invite me to things even when I say I can't go, because sometimes I can't go. Sometimes if I did go, I'd pay for it, but maybe the next week I'll be fine. In general, I'm very gentle with myself. Tommy Anderson asks, how do you buck up and take on a role that you're not that into? My strategy when I am in this situation is to find something in it that I think is really cool. If I go in with the assumption that the thing that's really cool about this piece of music is something that I just don't inherently get or am missing, and that it exists, and my job is to sleuth it out and find it, I will invariably find something that I connect to. If I take the time to unravel the drama of the music, I find within it what I need to make it compelling to me and therefore to translate it and make it compelling to the audience. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's a sort of sleuthing thing. I love this one. DT asks, what's the funniest thing that has ever happened to you on stage / backstage in an opera? Oh my goodness. There is one story that shines out above all the rest. This is my literal operatic debut story. So I'm 13 years old. I have been cast in Vancouver Opera's production of Verdi's Macbeth as one of the apparitions, the bloody apparition. That means I get to pop out of the cauldron saying, "No man of woman born shall harm you," and leave. Wonderful music, a wonderful piece, and a wonderful company to have a debut with. Was super nervous, but also super honored because it's a huge theater. And the production was sold out because it was super star-studded. We had Jane Eaglin as Lady Macbeth and Greer Grimsley as Macbeth himself. They're superstars and they were amazing. It was fantastic. But it meant that this giant theater, the Queen Elizabeth Theater in Vancouver, which seats I don't know how many people, I will put the number down here, was full, and it's opening night. Now, the nature of the production was that by curtain call, I was dressed not as the apparition, but as one of the refugees. As the apparition, I was literally painted green, and I had 10 minutes to go be a refugee. So when I would come off stage, the makeup people would be backstage with a makeup cloth between each finger, holding them like this, so we could just grab them and just rub it all off as quickly as we could. Thankfully, they had coordinated with the costume people to make sure we were super covered, so we only really had to get rid of the paint on our hands and our faces. But it meant that by curtain call, the audience didn't really know who we were. And we had just popped out of the cauldron once, like an hour before, and, you know, Jane Eaglin and Greer Grimsley sang like gods, so nobody's really paying that much attention to us. But still, you know, we take our bow and people politely applaud. We line up in a line of all the soloists, so that does technically include me, right at the front of the stage, to take a soloist bow altogether. And obviously, again, I was not that important. I was a little 13-year-old kid, just right at the very edge. And the set of this production was sort of rocky, so I took our bow when the whole line did our bow all together, and then we were supposed to take a step back to like gather the chorus up behind us so the whole chorus and all the soloists could take a company bow together. And I did this very confidently, and I stepped on set and I went down, just boom, like a very loud noise, and I was just on my butt, and I felt every eyeball in that theater turned straight at me, and it was so much, it felt like heat to see everybody whoop staring at me suddenly when they clearly hadn't been looking at me before. It was so intense, and I was mortified. Luckily, I had been a dancer since age 4, so I had enough experience on stage to not feel like I was gonna melt into a puddle and die. My sort of automatic reflexes kicked in, because dancers respond to any problem on stage by smiling even wider, and that's what I did. I got up immediately, I think I waved, and I smiled, and I think I got another little applause for like getting up. And that will forever be my operatic debut. The first ever role I ever sang, I fell flat on my butt next to Greer Grimsley and Jane Eaglin. Yeah, completely upstaged them in a horrifying way. It was horrific. Singing Cyclist asks, what are the changes you'd like to see in the opera community in terms of audience interaction / expectations and accommodations from opera companies and chosen performance venues? This was the big one. I mean, I could write series of essays on every little thing that could be done, obviously. And again, I'm not an expert, I'm just a disabled opera singer and opera lover. So I can tell you what I would want from my perspective. If you want some more ideas about what people can do, I highly recommend watching the Making Opera Accessible panel, which I'll link in the card above, which I moderated, which was really cool. You can also take a look at the Opera and Disability blog run by Dr. Charlotte Armstrong. It is amazing, and I will link that blog in the doobly-doo below as well. But sort of a broad strokes is this. I'd like to see the paradigm shift. A lot of opera companies all over the world try to like focus group and talk out in meetings and in committees why opera is dying and what they can do to bring it to life again. They spend a lot of money and energy on this, and they don't really ever seem to come to a conclusion. And to me, the conclusion is pretty simple, but it's pretty profound. It's a pretty profound paradigm shift. And that is make opera accessible. Make opera accessible in every aspect. Make it accessible financially, make it accessible to marginalized communities, make it accessible to disabled viewers and artists, etc. There's a lot of focus in the operatic community on tradition, but I think that that focus forgets that if opera is not being translated through modern musicians and being then viewed and listened to by modern ears, it doesn't exist. On the page, in the score, is not really how the art lives, right? It's the instruction manual for the art. And I think embracing the fact that this means that there is an inherent newness to opera every time you put it on is the way to make opera accessible. Embracing the fact that to some degree, opera by necessity has to be newly interpreted every single time it's performed gives producers and directors permission to really reimagine their operas, and from there to reimagine how those operas engage with their audiences. New opera goers won't try out an opera if they think it's a snobby place where they won't be welcomed. Instead, make it clear to all people that they will be invited into operatic spaces, be safe there, and be able to see themselves meaningfully represented on stage, and you'll see. You'll get bums in seats. Yeah, does that make sense? I'm sure I could do a whole video doing a sort of much deeper dive on that, but that's the paradigm shift that I'd like to see. Thinking about every aspect of opera as not a way just to sell it to people, but to include people. Because people that you're selling your opera to don't know that they're allowed to take up this new space in the operatic sphere unless they already somehow magically know. And just selling it as a fun time may not tell them that. Again, I need to stop myself before I go on a diet rant, but Oral Composting asks, have you ever performed/premiered an opera by a living composer? If so, did you get to work with them? And the answer is no, I haven't, and I would love to. Like I said in this video about how to make your next opera more LGBT friendly, New Opera is a really exciting place for making opera accessible and inclusive, and I would love to be a part of that, and it just hasn't happened. It's not that I don't want it to, it just kind of hasn't. I think the newest opera that I've ever been in is The Telephone by Menotti, or Candide by Bernstein, but I don't know which one came first. This foo asks, is Canada a good country for disabled people in terms of treatments and job opportunities? I think the word good is comparative, and of course there are places in the world where it'll be worse, but I think the answer largely comes down to this. Here in Canada, almost everyone I know who is disabled has horror stories about the system not working for them, about the system trying on purpose to push them out. And when we find doctors that support us and treat us like full human people, we're surprised. And we share that information with all our friends and say, hey, here's a good doctor, you should go see them. And I think that tells us all we really need to know, right? Healthcare in Canada is not fully free, and there are lots of things that still need to get paid for. And being disabled in Canada is expensive, which further marginalizes people who are both disabled and poor. There's a long way to go. Job opportunities, again, I think it depends on your job, right? There are lots of jobs that I know that I probably just couldn't do. And there are lots of jobs still that I think aren't super inclusive to disabled people. I guess the question to me about this question is, what does good mean? Because Canada, I love you, but you can do better. Thank you for your opera and disability questions. That was really fun and cool. I would love to do this again. And again, I am just one disabled person, and I'm not here ever to claim to speak for the disabled community as a whole. This is just my experience, my answers, my thoughts. If you have any differing thoughts, or the same thoughts or thoughts, drop them in a comment down below. If you'd like to stick around, please do hit that subscribe button and ring the little bell. Keep the comment section full of joy and light, and I will see you in my next video. Corner of the internet. Internet. Oops, I spilled my tea! No! You get to see that I like glam up from here up, and then from here down, I'm just in sweatpants. Serving up disability justice and anti-bigotry with a smile.